She stood beside Yasser Arafat, smiling, bandaging the wounded, listening to his orders. To everyone around her, she was just a Jordanian nurse, a devoted doctor working for the Palestinian cause. Doctor Amina. No one suspected that behind her kind smile was a spy. For years, Amina Dawood al-Mufti worked inside Palestinian shelters, gaining access to their most secret inner circles. She knew everything: who, where, and when. But in 1975, the truth came out. Arafat's nurse turned out to be an agent of the Israeli Mossad, secretly sending information to Tel Aviv about the leaders of the PLO. After being exposed, she was captured by militants. Her life became a nightmare. Her face, a mask of pain. But even then, in a dark underground prison, she kept her secrets. What really happened to the woman who spied for Israel and paid for it with her life? She was born in 1939 in Amman, the young capital of Jordan, a city where the dust of the desert mixed with the scent of coffee and politics. Her name was Amina Dawood al-Mufti, a girl from a respected Circassian family. Her father was a wealthy jeweler who supplied the royal court, her uncle, a general close to the king. Her mother was an educated woman, fluent in several languages, who believed knowledge was the highest form of power. Their home combined discipline, refinement, and a deep respect for education. From childhood, Amina stood out. Intelligent, curious, and confident, she questioned everything. Teachers said she had the mind of a man and the will of a soldier. Her gaze was always steady, never afraid. At 18, her family sent her to study in Europe, an unusual decision for a young woman of that time. Her father believed that a woman's true strength lies in her intellect. In Vienna, she studied medical psychology and later specialized in psychopathology. The city opened a new world to her, one of freedom, art, and philosophy. She quickly adapted, mastering languages and blending effortlessly into European society. Calm, sharp, and ambitious, she stood apart from her peers, a woman who knew exactly what she wanted. Yet inside her grew a quiet conflict. One part of her remained loyal to family and tradition, the other longed for independence. In conservative Jordan, she would have been caged. In Europe, she finally felt free. No one could have imagined that this elegant, intelligent woman, reading Freud and Jung, would one day become one of Mossad's most valuable assets, and that her knowledge of the human mind would turn into a weapon more dangerous than any gun. After graduating from the University of Vienna, Amina's life looked perfect: young, educated, and independent. She was known in academic circles as a promising researcher working on a dissertation in psychopathology. She lived alone in a small apartment near the Vienna Opera, spent evenings in cafes, and joined student debates about politics and philosophy. It was there, in 1966, that she met the man who would change her life forever. His name was Moshe Perad, an Israeli Air Force pilot, a captain. Tall, calm, and disciplined, the kind of man shaped by danger and the open sky. He had everything she admired: strength, purpose, and quiet confidence. For the first time, Amina, always rational and guarded, fell in love. Moshe spoke about his country, small, surrounded by enemies, surviving only through courage and unity. He never talked about religion or hatred, only about duty and belief in people. She listened, fascinated. It was a worldview she had never heard in Amman. They married soon after in a small synagogue in Vienna. For Amina, it was more than marriage. It was rebellion. She renounced Islam, converted to Judaism, and cut all ties with her past. Her family disowned her. In Jordan, her name became a symbol of shame and betrayal. But she didn't look back. In 1972, the couple moved to Israel. She as a psychologist, he as a pilot, with new assignments. They rented a small house in the north. Life seemed to be starting anew. Then, in January 1973, tragedy struck. During a training flight near the Syrian border, Moshe's plane was shot down by Syrian artillery. His body was never found. He was declared missing in action. For Amina, the waiting became unbearable. Days and nights passed without news. The man she loved had vanished, leaving behind only his uniform and a photograph. That loss broke her completely. She lost not just her husband, but her sense of purpose. And in the emptiness that followed, something else took root, a cold, focused desire for revenge. After her husband's death, Amina's life came to a halt. She stopped sleeping, barely ate, and spent hours staring out the window. Israel, The country she had moved to with her husband now felt foreign and cold. She had lost everything: her home, her faith, and the man she loved. But over time, grief turned into something else: determination. A single thought began to form in her mind: to take revenge. One day she received a phone call. A calm male voice said, "Mrs. Parad, we'd like to talk about your husband." They met in a quiet cafe on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. The man spoke softly but with authority. "Your husband was a hero. His mission should continue. Israel needs people like you." That conversation changed everything. They weren't offering her a job. They were offering her a new life, a chance to turn pain into purpose. And she said yes. At a secret training base in the Negev desert, recruits had no names, only assignments. The first lesson was simple: forget who you were. Her days became a blur of drills, exercises, and psychological tests: endurance, surveillance, encryption, undercover work, and interrogation resistance. She learned to think clearly under pressure, to control her face, and to make decisions instantly. Instructors quickly noticed her precision. She noticed everything: gestures, tone, eye movement. Her medical background and understanding of human psychology made her invaluable. Amina spoke 7 languages: Arabic, Hebrew, English, French, German, Turkish, and Circassian. She could change her accent in seconds, adapting to any role: doctor, volunteer, journalist, diplomat. Her cover identity was built with care: a European-educated doctor specializing in rehabilitation. The documents were perfect, the references real. On paper, she was a compassionate physician who treated without questions. By the end of her training, her handlers knew she was more than just an agent. She was exceptional, precise, composed, completely loyal. In the Mossad's internal reports, her file carried a single line: the Pearl of Mossad. She received a new passport, Red Crescent credentials, and a ticket to Beirut, the city where her mission would begin. There, Doctor Amina al-Mufti would become a healer, a confidant, and Mossad's eyes inside the heart of her enemies. Beirut in the early 1970s was loud, cosmopolitan, and chaotic. Diplomats, journalists, merchants, and spies moved through the same streets. It was the perfect place to disappear in plain sight. Dr. Amina al-Mufti arrived as a respected Vienna-educated rehabilitation physician. Her papers were flawless, her manners European. She set up a small clinic in Hamra, treating civilians and wounded fighters who avoided official hospitals. Gradually, commanders and figures from Fatah and the PFLP began to come to her door. Amina knew how to make people talk without asking questions. Her calm professionalism built trust, and that trust became her instrument. One day, a wounded man was brought in. A nurse whispered, "He's close to Abu Ammar." Abu Ammar was Yasser Arafat. After a few visits, she received a personal pass signed by Arafat himself, allowing her access to camps and headquarters. To everyone, she was simply Dr. Amina, apolitical and reliable. Behind the white coat, however, was a trained intelligence officer. By day, she practiced medicine. By night, she compiled intelligence. Casual remarks became reports: routes, meeting dates, names of couriers. Her clinic was near several headquarters, so she could observe who came and went. Her notes reached Tel Aviv through a network of couriers, fragments of conversations, photographs, route descriptions, which analysts turned into actionable targets. Her contacts grew. Regional figures like Wadi Haddad and George Habash came as patients, exhausted, unguarded. In those moments, people let slip details they wouldn't say in formal settings. Arafat introduced her at public events as our best doctor, and no one suspected that for months she had been feeding Israeli intelligence with movements and plans. Her reports went beyond troop movements. They included evidence of contacts between Fatah and outside security services, arms shipments, new training camps, and plots against diplomats and civilians. Information gathered through relationships often proved more precise than intercepts or satellite imagery. She understood the stakes. One careless word could end everything, and kept the appearance of an absorbed, professional physician. That appearance was her cover. Amina al-Mufti knew everything: who arrived, who disappeared, who was negotiating with whom. By 1973, her network covered nearly all Palestinian camps in Lebanon. Through trust, professionalism, and discretion, she gained access to those who shaped PLO policy. In Mossad, her file was kept separately, marked most reliable source in the region. Every operation that began with precise coordinates of militants started from her reports. Thanks to her information, Israel prevented dozens of attacks on its diplomats and civilians. Many who planned attacks were arrested before they could leave Lebanon. In spring 1973, a turning order came. Israel planned a major operation codenamed Spring of Youth. The goal was to eliminate the leaders of the Black September group responsible for the murder of Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics. She was the key to the operation. Amina knew Beirut inside out, every alley where militants might hide. She passed exact addresses to Mossad, the apartments of Abu Yusuf, Kamal Adwan, and Kamal Nasser, three senior Fatah figures linked to Black September. That information formed the basis of the Special Forces plan. On the night of April 9th to 10th, 1973, while the city slept, Israeli naval craft approached the Beirut shore. On board were fighters from Sayeret Matkal and Shayatet 13, including a young commander named Ehud Barak, the future prime minister. Under the cover of darkness, they landed on the Ramlat al-Baida beach, in the very area where Amina's clinic operated. She had provided patrol routes and the times when guards left their posts. The operation lasted less than an hour. All three targets were eliminated, weapons caches and 2 ammunition workshops destroyed. The Israelis withdrew without losses. The next day, international agencies reported a bold nighttime raid in the heart of Lebanon, and in Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv, the operational log recorded, "Source Alma provided exact coordinates. Mission accomplished." From that moment, her status in Israeli intelligence changed. Amina became more than an agent. She became a legend. With her help, entire arms supply networks and money routes from Eastern Europe were exposed. She reported contacts between Fatah and KGB handlers who supervised operations against Israel, and visits by East German Stasi agents who supplied communications equipment and documents to the Palestinians. Some of her reports helped foil a plot against an Israeli embassy in Africa. Others prevented attacks on civilian aircraft. Reading her dispatches, analysts sometimes refused to believe so much could come from a single source. But success carried a price. She lived on the edge, constantly among people who considered Israel an enemy. Every meeting, every visit to a Fatah headquarters could have been her last. She knew that a single mistake could erase any trace of where and how her life would end. The spring of 1973 brought Amina not only recognition, but also a shadow that would forever follow her name. By then, she was considered one of Mossad's most trusted sources, a woman whose information was taken as fact. But that flawless reputation would turn against her. One day in early July, she sent a short message to Tel Aviv. It said that Ali Hassan Salameh, the operations chief of Black September and Yasser Arafat's right-hand man, was scheduled to fly from Geneva to Oslo on a specific flight. Salameh was one of Israel's most wanted men, believed to be the mastermind of the Munich massacre. His elimination was a top Mossad priority. The information Amina passed seemed credible. She had overheard it in a conversation at the Arab League office where she worked undercover. But she had added one phrase that changed everything. "I heard he is supposed to be on that flight." When the message reached headquarters, the first words, "I heard," were mistakenly omitted from the report. What was meant as a rumor was read as confirmed intelligence. The operation began. Agents were sent to Norway to intercept and kill Salameh upon arrival. Surveillance focused on a man matching his description: dark-haired, similar build, Middle Eastern appearance. No one realized it was Ahmed Bouchiki, a Moroccan waiter married to a Norwegian woman who was expecting their child. When he returned home after a movie, the agents shot him on the street. Within days, Norwegian police arrested almost everyone involved. The media exploded. Mossad had made one of the worst mistakes in its history. The Lillehammer affair became synonymous with failure. In Tel Aviv, the storm began. An internal investigation was launched. The names of everyone connected to the communication chain were classified. Amina's name never appeared. Her status was too high for even a hint of involvement to reach the press. Inside the organization, however, doubt spread. Could such an error really be accidental? Some said she had simply passed on a rumor, unaware of its consequences. Others believed she had been careless, overestimating her sources. A few whispered that Palestinian intelligence might have deliberately fed her false information to mislead Mossad. Whatever the truth, the blow to her reputation was irreversible. For the first time, a shadow fell over her record. She continued her work, but trust was gone. Every report she sent was double-checked, every word analyzed for errors. For someone used to precision and independence, that was unbearable. Amina herself was devastated. She knew that a single phrase, a small oversight, had caused a man's death and endangered an entire network. It was not just an intelligence failure, it was her personal tragedy. After Lillehammer, Mossad reorganized its structure and tightened control over field sources. Amina remained active, but her standing weakened. She was treated with respect and caution. Her reports were still valuable, yet they carried risk. Officially, she was still listed among Mossad's most reliable agents, but in reality, a wall of mistrust had formed between her and her handlers. By mid-1975, Lebanon was on the verge of chaos. Civil war was smoldering beneath the surface, and every day brought new clashes between Palestinian factions and local militias. For Amina al-Mufti, it meant one thing: her work had become more dangerous than ever. Then came the moment she had always feared. One of Mossad's couriers was captured by Fatah fighters in Beirut. He was carrying documents and coded notes. During interrogation, he gave up several names. Among them was hers, Doctor Amina al-Mufti. It didn't take long to confirm. She had already been under observation, and one day, as she stepped out of her car near a Palestinian camp, she was surrounded. No gunfire, no shouting. It was over in seconds. She understood instantly. There was no way back. The interrogations began immediately. They demanded names, addresses, and contacts. She denied everything, using the psychological techniques she'd been taught. Repeat the same answers. Stay calm. Don't argue. But it was a battle she couldn't win. Days turned into weeks, into months. Eventually, foreign advisors joined the process. Men she had only heard of before, officers from the Soviet Union and East Germany. Their goal wasn't just to extract information, but to make an example of her, to show what happens to those who work against them. Amina was taken to a place that later became a whisper among prisoners, an underground shelter near Sidon. It wasn't a prison in the usual sense, but an old stone storage room with no windows, no sunlight, no sense of time. Food arrived irregularly. Water was rationed. She was kept alone, forbidden to speak to anyone. Sometimes there were interrogations. Sometimes there was only silence for weeks. Psychological pressure became routine. They told her Israel had forgotten her, that her name had been erased, that no one would ever trade prisoners for a doctor no one remembered. She said nothing. In southern Lebanon, rumors spread of a woman doctor suspected of spying for Israel, but no one knew who she really was. Her name never appeared in print. Her photo was never shown. Only a few vague reports in the Arab press mentioned an agent linked to operations in Beirut. Thus began the darkest chapter of her life, years spent in complete isolation. No letters, no news from the outside world. She didn't know if the war still raged, who ruled Lebanon, or whether her family was alive. Later, after her release, Amina would say that during those years she truly learned to understand human nature. When you are left alone, without a name, without a mirror, you finally see who you really are. She survived thanks to the discipline she'd learned in Mossad. Control your breathing, balance your mind, never let fear become despair. Each day survived was a small victory. And far away, deep in Mossad's archives, her name was still there. Under the note, lost, possible exchange. 5 years of imprisonment became a test beyond words for Amina. She barely saw daylight, had no sense of time, and learned to count the days by the sound of guards' footsteps and the rare change in air temperature. At first she waited, then she stopped. When hope disappears, only survival remains. Her strength came not from her body, but from discipline. Every morning she forced herself to breathe steadily, to recall medical charts, Latin terms, her professors' names, anything to stay connected to reality. Being a doctor helped her. When she was injured or sick, she treated herself with whatever she could find. Sometimes she helped other prisoners, bandaging wounds, sharing water, advising how to reduce fever. Even in captivity, she remained what she had always been, someone who healed. By late 1979, rumors began to spread in the camps. Palestinian prisoners held in Israel might be exchanged for a woman doctor who had been in captivity for years. She heard about it last and didn't believe it at first. Only when the guards' behavior changed, softer, more careful, did she realize something was happening. On February 13, 1980, at Larnaca Airport in Cyprus, the exchange took place under the supervision of the International Red Cross. Amina al-Mufti was going home, though the word home now felt strange. Israel released 2 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences and in return received a woman officially listed as dead. The operation was personally approved by Prime Minister Menachem Begin. When she stepped off the plane, doctors barely recognized her. Thin, pale-eyed, she looked at least 10 years older. She spent several weeks in a hospital near Tel Aviv, undergoing surgeries and dental reconstruction. Her identity was classified. Journalists never learned her name. Mossad officers who visited her all noticed one thing: she hardly spoke. She didn't ask for anything, didn't demand explanations. She only listened when they told her it was all over. Her quiet answer was always the same: nothing is over. Only silence. Thus, one chapter of her life ended and another began, stranger and heavier than captivity itself. She now faced a new biography, a new name, and life in a country she had served faithfully, but where no one really knew her anymore. After her release, Amina was rebuilt piece by piece. Plastic surgery erased the marks of torture, false teeth restored her smile, and a blonde wig hid her short, almost gray hair. A new passport, a new birth date, a new name: Dr. Ruth Nisanoff. Her past no longer existed, even on paper. She was placed under protection in the northern city of Kiryat Yam and given a position at Sheba Hospital near Tel Aviv. There she worked as a psychiatrist in the anesthesiology department, headed by Dr. Yona Elian, the same physician who had taken part in the capture of Adolf Eichmann. It seemed fate had once again tied her to people whose names were known throughout Israel. But she was no longer the same, reserved, withdrawn, almost never smiling. During breaks, she would sit for hours on a bench outside the hospital. With colleagues, she was polite but distant. If anyone asked about her family or her past, she would change the subject or quietly leave the room. She performed her duties carefully but without enthusiasm. Colleagues respected her, yet found her odd. Some noted that her knowledge didn't match her position and that she often needed assistance in her work. When Dr. Elian left his post, Ruth lost her protector. The new head of department didn't know who she really was or why she had been hired without an interview. Soon came the dismissal order. She was offered compensation and a recommendation, a polite way to end her medical career in state institutions. She didn't argue. She simply packed her things and left for the south, to the Dead Sea. There she found a job in a therapeutic resort treating skin diseases, helping patients with psoriasis and dermatitis. Her life became quiet and monotonous again. Morning treatments, patient records, evening walks along the promenade, and the same ever-present cigarette. Later, she moved to Hadra, rented a small house, and lived alone. Neighbors remembered her as polite but reclusive, neat, dry, with a European accent and almost monastic restraint. Occasionally, people in Mossad would mention her as the woman who had survived, but never truly returned to life. Her name appeared on the organization's wall of honor among those who had shown exceptional loyalty. But for her, it no longer meant anything. In the early 1990s, she unexpectedly decided to return to medicine. In Nazareth, a city with a mostly Arab population, she opened a small private clinic specializing in skin diseases. Patients came willingly. She was respected for her attentiveness and precision, though few knew who she really was. It was there that she grew close to one family. The man she often visited at home suffered from a chronic skin condition. His wife, the daughter of a local imam, befriended Amina by bringing her food and helping at the clinic. For Amina, living under the name Ruth, this family became her only circle of trust. After the Israel-Jordan Peace Treaty was signed in 1994, she decided, for the first time in years, to travel to Amman. The visit was emotional. Her relatives, cautious at first, eventually accepted her. Her brother, who had long believed she was dead, wept when they met. She visited several more times, yet each return left her feeling strangely empty. By the mid-2000s, she had almost stopped leaving the house. She smoked more, spoke less, and often repeated the same words. The country I gave my life for left no place for me. In 2008, she wrote her will, leaving all her possessions, her home, savings, and medical instruments to the same Arab family that had cared for her in her final years. Neither Mossad nor any Israeli institution was mentioned. That autumn, she moved back to Amman, where she lived only a short time. According to official records, she died in 2008 at the age of 69 and was buried in a small Circassian cemetery. So ended the life of a woman who was once Mossad's most valuable agent. Dr. Amina al-Mufti, doctor, spy, prisoner, and exile, passed away quietly, without headlines or ceremonies. Only those who knew her true identity remembered that behind the name, Ruth Nisanoff was the pearl of Mossad. She lived between two worlds, healer and spy, heroine and outcast. Her story reminds us that behind great intelligence operations stand people who often pay with their own lives. What do you think? Was Amina al-Mufti a hero or simply a person caught on the wrong side of history? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.